Phone's on. I want to talk about what nobody really talks about on the internet. The truth about running a business. The real, hard, grinding truth of what it takes to run a business in 2025. So, just to give context, I started a PR agency in 2021. Let me backtrack. I dropped out of college in 2021. I was playing college soccer. And the thing is, during COVID, every single day, the schedule was the same in such an isolating way. I'll give a story. For example, I would wake up, I would brush my teeth, I would go train 6 feet apart with our masks on, play soccer for 2 hours, I would train for 2 hours, then go back to our room. Me and my roommate, we would go into our separate rooms and we would have Zoom school all day long. We would go to dinner to eat, again, 6 feet apart, and then go back to our rooms. And it was like this constant cycle of wake up, train, Zoom school, eat, sleep. Wake up, train, Zoom school, eat, sleep. And it was so unhealthy that I grew sad and unhappy, and I decided to take a gap year with the support of my mom, who's been amazing. She definitely will come back into the story. But I say that because I think there's this misconception of a lot of entrepreneurs. People see entrepreneurs when they're at the peak or they're at the top of the mountain, and they don't know that they went through all these pricks and bushes, and they fell into holes, and they cut their legs, and they went through all these different paths to get to that point. And so I like to share that because I've had an experience of going through that mental health low point in my life to take a gap year and start my agency. And so that was my first business. And then in 2022, I started publishing books. And so I published my first book end of 2022. And then in 2023, focused on just that one book until I got 100 reviews on Amazon. And then 2024, I had an aha moment. I was like, wait a second. If I can make this much, at the time it was around making $5,000 to $7,000 a month in royalties, I was like, why not just create more books? Like if I scale with more books, then I can make more money because each book can bring in as much as this book. That was my thinking. So in 2024, I launched, I think 7 or 8 books, but it wasn't until August of 2024, that's when I discovered TikTok Shop. And I remember exactly where I was. I was in Croatia with my friends. We were at a cafe. I was drinking coffee. And I remember I bought this guy's course. His name's Rob the Bank. And he was selling a course where he taught, the course was great. Rob's awesome. Bought his course, and it was a lot of money. Like a lot of money that I was spending more at the time on the book business than it was earning. And so my PR agency was what was allowing me to live my life. But I knew in my bones that the book business, especially with this course on teaching me how to do TikTok Shop, was going to be the biggest unlock of my life. And I remember sitting at that cafe with my espresso, and there was jazz music playing, and I just remember thinking to myself, this is going to change my life. I remember that exact moment because I just felt the opportunity. I knew when I bought that first course that taught me how to publish books that would change my life, and I knew that TikTok Shop would also change my life. I think there are these moments in an entrepreneur's life when you have such a gut knowing that, okay, I'm on the right path. And there are other times where you're like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out, I feel maybe stuck or in between, but there are also moments where I feel incredibly in alignment with what I'm doing. But now we flash forward to April in 2025. There's a lot that happened in between, but the reason I want to make this is because I want to be raw and honest. Because I think, again, a lot of people see you on this mountaintop. They see the entrepreneurs. There's a saying that entrepreneurs are like ducks in water. They look like they're gliding on the top, but underneath their legs are kicking and paddling, and they're trying so hard to stay afloat because it looks like you just sometimes get handed, or you have this wealth lifestyle, all this stuff, but there's so much paddling below the surface, that you're constantly grinding. And I love the game. I wouldn't want to do it any other way, but I think it's important to share that you have to have this muscle, and I'm constantly working on this muscle of my tolerance to paddling, my tolerance to being able to take things that happen. For example, we're, going into Mother's Day, My Mom Rocks, the book that I wrote for my mom, that I handed to her, and I wrote it for her for her birthday, because I wanted to do something nice and unique, and I wanted to be my sister in a better present. And so I wrote it for her, and I handed it to her, and she got emotional, and she was like, and I wasn't even going to launch it in my publishing. I just knew I had the skill to make something. But I wrote it for her, handed it to her without the intention of launching it like on a global mass scale. But she looked at me and she's like, Lexi, moms don't get told enough how incredible they are, how amazing they are, how much we love them, how much they are loved. You need to launch this. You need to publish this. You need to market this. You need to put energy behind it. And she looked at me and she's like, this is going to be a bestseller. And I had a feeling too. I had a feeling as well, but I think my mom knew first before I did. And so now we are here, and in February, so I launched in December, and for 2 months we really didn't get many sales, but then the day before Valentine's Day we went super viral, and it was amazing, and we're, now we're just riding that momentum. But right before Valentine's Day, there's this other book that comes out. I'm just, I'm sharing like the just what it's like to be an entrepreneur. People see your success, and then they launch, a product similar. And so, there's a similar product that's not the same, but there's definitely some, inspiration that they took from ours. And so, that's something that we're working with, right? Like we have this incredible product, but then somebody comes and launches something very similar, right? Then you have to work through that. I just ordered 100,000 books, right? That's a lot of money you have to spend to buy that many books. So I'm working, managing that. That's the biggest payment I've ever spent in my life on something. So it's like there's a lot of balls that you have to juggle, but it's all worth it, because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm so passionate for what I do and for specifically the books is because I did it for my mom. And it all comes from the fact that she raised me, that I wouldn't be where I am without her. And I wrote this book for her, so I know that focusing on the story of how much she's impacted my life, and whoever has also been raised by a single mom, I know that this is worth it to me. I know that this book is worth it to share with other people because of how much it's meant to me and how much it meant to my mom. To clarify, this book is for all moms. I'm just saying that my mom's a single mom, so if you also have that deep connection with your mom because you were just raised by her, or if you also have a dad, this book is for all moms. That's the goal of My Mom Rocks. I wrote it for my mom, and moms deserve to know that how much they're loved. And so I wrote 101 reasons. There are other books that have been launched that are significantly less, like 20, 30 reasons, right? I wrote 101. And I stand by that. Like, if you want to buy, the 30, then that's your choice. But I wrote 101 because that's the least amount we can do for our moms. I stand confident and strong and firm in that. They do so much. The least we can do is write them 101. So I'll wrap this up. But what I'm trying to say is that there's always going to be ups and downs in business. But as long as you love the game and you talk about it, you share with other people, and you communicate, and you have a great environment, and you write down your targets. I call goals targets because they're easier to hit, in my opinion. But if you get clear on what you want, and you surround yourself with good people, and you don't let the other things that you can't control affect you, because there's always going to be things, right? I've listed a couple examples. I can't control other people launching similar products. I can't control the TikTok algorithm. I can control my attitude. I can control my mindset. I can control supplying my incredible creators with good inspiration and feedback, and focusing on all the things I have to be grateful. So just wanted to share that. Thank you for watching. I'm going to keep posting videos like this, and I'll come up with some good stuff in a couple days. Peace.